Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. But as I said off the top, I do think probably the biggest story of the college football Saturday is the fact that Oklahoma lost for a second straight time. And I think the reason that it's the biggest story, at least in my opinion, is because of the fact that Oklahoma is a team that we have essentially over the last 3, 4, 5 years just kind of like penciled them into the college football playoff in the preseason. We basically said, look, they're going to get tripped up at some point. They're going to have a bad game, but they're going to finish 12-1. They're going to win the Big 12, and they will be there in the end when it matters. Now, can they compete with Alabama, LSU, Clemson? That's another story. But at the very least, Oklahoma will be there at the end. Instead, it's the exact opposite in 2020. You talk about a crazy year in 2020. How about Oklahoma being 1-2 following a 37-30 loss to Iowa State? And it is a surreal moment in time because Oklahoma has been such a bellwether, bell cow program in college football, and the stats really largely back that up. I went back and looked it up. This is the first time since 2016 that Oklahoma is now unranked following this second straight loss. It is the first time since 1999 that they lost back-to-back games. I mean, we literally have people listening to this show, and it's going to make people like me and people my age in your 30s, 40s, 50s feel old. We have people that listen to this show that were not alive the last time Oklahoma lost 2 straight games. That happened in 1999, Bob Stoops' first season at Oklahoma. And how about this first stat? First time since 1960 that Oklahoma lost to Iowa State, a team that they've played, lost at Iowa State, not to Iowa State, but at Iowa State, a team that they essentially play every single year in Big 12 play. So it is a crazy moment in time. It is a surreal moment in time. And I really do think it's time to start asking some tough questions about Oklahoma. Now, I do think that if you just look at the box score, which is what the losers and idiots do. AT takes you deeper than the box score. But if you just look at the box score, I think it's easy to say, well, Oklahoma's got the same problem that they always do. They don't play any defense. And I don't think you'd necessarily be wrong by saying that. If you look at the final stats of the last couple games, first of all, Oklahoma gives up 38 points to Kansas State last week in a loss. They give up 37 points to Iowa State on Saturday night. And so if you look at Oklahoma, their offense is still averaging like 37 points a game and 37.5 in their, they're averaging like 39 points a game and 36.5 just in Big 12 play. And I will say in defense of Oklahoma, if your offense is putting up 36.5 points in conference play, you should be undefeated. Your defense shouldn't be so bad that you have to score more than 36, 37 points to win. And so the defense is bad. Again, the offensive line is not as good as it has been in recent years. And so we are seeing these struggles again from Oklahoma. But to me, I do think it falls deeper than maybe we realize with the offense as well. Because I do think it's easy to say, well, if you score 37 points a game, you should be winning every game. And that is totally fair. But it's not as though Oklahoma hasn't had to score 35, 37, 40, 42, 45, 55 points to win games in the past. And they have been able to. They've been able to with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. They've been able to with Kyler Murray at quarterback. They've been able to with Jalen Hurts at quarterback last year. And so I do think some of this falls on the offense. And when I think about it, I think that, look, I'm not saying Lincoln Riley is the problem, right? I think I'm probably the only person even criticizing the offense at all because, again, in their defense, they are scoring a crap ton of points. But in the past, they have always been able to pull out that last drive that they need to get a victory, and this year they haven't. And so when you fall to 1-2, when you fall out of the top 25 for the first time since 2016, when you lose back-to-back games for the first time since 1999, a lot of tough questions have to be asked. And so while I think it's easy to pin it all on the defense, I think some of it does fall on the offense, but not in the way that you think. So to be clear, I'm not criticizing the offense. I'm not saying that they're not doing enough. And if anything, you know who I'm blaming? I'm blaming guys like me. I'm blaming guys and girls in the media. Because I do think coming into this season, we had this narrative in our head, oh, it doesn't matter who Lincoln Riley has at quarterback. It doesn't matter who Lincoln Riley has at all of these skill positions. Oklahoma's going to be fine. They're going to put up 60 a game, and they're going to win every game except for one, and then they'll make the playoff and they'll lose. And I think that was the narrative. And I think we undersold in the media how hard it is to do year in and year out, season in, season out with a new quarterback every single season. And so while I know the offense isn't necessarily quote unquote to blame, I do think that we do have to look at the offense because as I said a minute ago, when Kyler Murray was there, they might have 30, if the defense gives up 37, you score 43 and you win. If they give up 41, you score 45 and you win. Same with Baker Mayfield, same with Jalen Hurts, and it's just not happening this year. And when I look at the offense, like I said, I do think that there's probably too much of a narrative of, oh, Lincoln Riley, just plug and play. Doesn't matter who he puts in, they're gonna go 11-1 and make the college football playoff. And I went back and I looked, and I do think the lack of continuity on offense this year is hurting them. First off, of their top 3 rushers off last year's team, all 3 are gone. Jalen Hurts was actually their leading rusher last year at quarterback. He obviously graduated. Their best running back, Kennedy Brooks, actually opted out of the season. And then their second best running back, Trey Sermon, transferred to Ohio State. So you lose your top 3 running backs. Don't forget, I just mentioned I watched that Cowboys game. Know who scored a touchdown for the Cowboys? CeeDee Lamb. Know where CeeDee Lamb played last year? He played at Oklahoma. You lose CeeDee Lamb. You lose 3 of your top 4 receivers overall from last year. And so, yes, you're replacing these guys with talented players, with good recruits. Oklahoma always recruits well. But at a certain point, you lose so many pieces that you just can't overcome it. And if you look across college football, basically, except for maybe Ohio State and Clemson, everybody has dealt with that, right? I mean, think back to last year. Alabama couldn't stop anybody on defense. It's because you lose so many freaking pieces over the course of a 2-3 year period early to the NFL draft. You're going to have a year where your defense just doesn't look good. In the past, it's been the same with Georgia. They've lost pieces. They take a step back. Any program, it's a natural course of the situation. And so I do think that is what is going on in Oklahoma right now is they just have to replace so many guys so rapidly year after year after year after year after year that I do think this is the year that it caught up with them. I also do think part of it is the quarterback situation. And again, to be clear, I'm not blaming their quarterback whose name is Spencer Rattler. For people who do not know, Spencer Rattler, really highly rated kid coming out of high school. Basically the top high school quarterback 2 years ago, coming out of high school, commits to Oklahoma. Last year he plays behind Jalen Hurts. He was awesome. He was awesome early. He was awesome in high school. He was awesome as a redshirt last year. But I do wonder, have we put too much on his plate as well? Because I think it's so easy, again, to just sit here and say, well, look, it's Oklahoma. The guy's going to throw for 5,000 yards and be a Heisman Trophy candidate. And, I get it. I did that. I was one of those people in the preseason, dude, if you're looking for a Heisman contender, outside of Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, it's got to be Spencer Rattler, right? And I think what I undersold was just how good those other quarterbacks were. And more specifically, just how experienced those other quarterbacks were. If you go back to Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts, they all have one thing in common. It's not that they were Heisman finalists at Oklahoma, although that is one thing they had in common. It's that they all started and played big minutes in big games at Power 5 schools before they got to Oklahoma. Never forget, even though Baker Mayfield was a 3-year starter at Oklahoma, he began his career at Texas Tech. Then he gets hurt. He loses the job. He's trying to get it back. He ends up transferring to Oklahoma. Gets to Oklahoma, wins the Heisman. I think he won the Heisman. I can't even remember now off the top of my head. I know Kyler Murray certainly won the Heisman. He started his career at Texas A&M. Played big snaps, important snaps, big games, SEC on the road. Kyler Murray had a ton of experience under center in big games before he got to Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts, how about this? He won SEC Offensive Player of the Year. He started in national championship games. And we were comparing in the preseason Spencer Rattler, who was in high school 18 months ago, to that guy. And so when I look at Oklahoma, what I see is a very talented team, but a very young team that doesn't seem to have confidence in themselves, and more specifically, doesn't seem to have confidence late when things get tight. Never forget, they were up when they played Kansas State. Never forget when they played them. We talked about it on last week's show. But they were up at one point 35-14 late in the third quarter. They were up 35-21 going into the fourth quarter and got outscored 17-zip in the fourth quarter. When they played Iowa State last night, again, they had a lead at halftime and they get outscored 24-13 in the second half. Not one person's fault, not just the defense's fault, not Spencer Rattler's fault, but they just look like a team that, to me, gets nervous in big moments, especially late, tries to press and tries to force it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make them a bad program. It doesn't make them a bad team. It doesn't make Lincoln Riley a bad coach. But I just think we have them completely overvalued. Now, on the flip side, they have lost back-to-back one-possession games. One of them was on the road. The other team that they lost to last week was Kansas State, who beat Oklahoma last year. So they have a little bit of a track record of having success against Oklahoma. But when I look at Oklahoma, it's obviously not a vintage team, and I just don't think it gets better. I'll tell you this. It's a little early to talk about this coming weekend, but for people who haven't looked at the schedule, we got Texas, Oklahoma this weekend, and I'm just telling you, I do think I'm probably going to take Texas. And it's not because I love Texas. It's because I trust Sam Ehlinger. I trust Texas a little bit more. They have more vets across the board. So to me, when I look at Oklahoma, all I'm saying is very simply this.